Stupid YouTube intro. Here we go. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hey, exiles. I hope you're doing well. I am here tonight with HCXanth, or just Xanth, of the Pure Diablo podcast. He's an expert on all things ARPGs. He's been doing a, Diablo-centric pod for quite a while now, and we're here today to talk about ARPGs of all types. We're going to talk a little bit about Diablo 4 specifically, Path of Exile 2. Maybe we'll dabble in a few other topics as well, but the conversation is probably going to be centered around those two games. And I know there's a lot happening around PoE2, but I have to ask you, Xanth, as someone who has been, an avid Diablo player for so long, including Diablo 4, I know that you have enjoyed that game in the past. As an outsider who hasn't played the latest season, I've just read some of the commentary around it. It just seems like it fell really flat for a lot of people. Is that your opinion? Is some of it being overblown? Is there truth there? Just what are your general thoughts on the state of Diablo 4 right now?
Oof. Yeah, we're just gonna jump in
Okay.
real hot. Hi guys. Xanth here with the Diablo podcast. Self plug, I guess. State of Diablo. It is. I think it's in a weird position. I think you could see it coming when they released a roadmap a few weeks ago to kind of give a layout of what was going to happen with the game, and what you saw was a lot of sameness. The game has been out for 2 years now, looking for some larger changes to things that have cropped up since the beginning. And when you see a roadmap, you kind of hope that that might be on there, and that wasn't. And then you get this season that comes out, and while it does do some good things, it tries to slow things down a little bit, so it's not immediately overpowered. Because that was the biggest criticism of the previous season, is you were able to get, like, I found myself finishing the season in just about a week, and then it's like, well, what more do I have to do?
Mm.
This season slows it down, but I think the larger problem is when you slow down the gameplay, but you don't have a lot of interesting things yet to chase,
Right.
it doesn't feel as exciting. The itemization is still very problematic in terms of how there are all these items that are really build defining, and they're kind of tucked away, but you just find yourself chasing, like, maybe you do find one, but now
Mhm.
you're going to chase like a better version of it. That's not as exciting by comparison to Path of Exile, where if I were to find what's the name of the spear that everybody's using right now for
Dangle
lightning
tongue,
spear?
I believe.
Tangle tongue.
Yeah.
I'm pretty locked in. I did it. I found the Tangle Tongue. I don't need to find another Tangle Tongue.
Mm.
I have it. I don't need to go grind for 20 more hours to find that exact same item. And that kind of chase is less exciting. And I think you find people burning out. Add in a season mechanic, which is less rewarding. And yeah, you kind of get this recipe for what a lot of people are considering a lackluster season. I still think it's early. There's still time for some course correction. There's some time for some addition, and see what the team will end up doing. I'm still playing, but the other part was, even when I was playing the entire time, even on day one, I was thinking, I wonder what my lich is up to. I'd like to go back.
Oh,
And
no.
I had the ball rolling with her. Maybe I could, and I found myself even this morning dipping in a little bit to Path of Exile 2, and then coming back and just juggling both of them right now. So it's it's a weird spot right now.
Okay.
I can see where a lot of people have bounced off, but the other part, I think, with any ARPG is it the end game of most ARPGs complaining about the ARPG at this point?
No, I hope not. I hate it. I
It it
It does seem to
even
be, man.
even games that we like it just there is that cycle, and I think there's good criticism to be had, but then there's also just piling on that happens no matter what,
Yeah.
and it's just, how do you filter that out and not let it kind of impact your own enjoyment? If you're out there and you're playing Diablo right now and having a good time, by all means do that. But if you are seeing those things, like, voice those criticisms. Don't just jump on a bandwagon without having that kind of experience.
Yeah, well said. I think that goes for literally any game. Like I've seen this commentary happen, of course, in our own little niche community of ARPGs with PoE2 Dawn of the Hunt, and it didn't actually happen for Last Epoch. People hopped from PoE2 hating to Last Epoch is the best, and I think it's because a lot of people who were not liking the PoE2 experience but really seeking that blasty, classical modern ARPG experience that they like found in PoE1 and like Diablo 3 and really enjoyed themselves. And unfortunately, like people maybe moved from Last Epoch to Diablo 4, which then again was lackluster in that area right now. Like it played very different even to myself, because I've played an okay amount of it, but even when I did play it, it felt very different. And I think a lot of it has to go back to the open world. It did not click with me. I'm not going to lie. I feel like that game would have been way better if it didn't have the open world. And I don't know if that's a hot take or anything, because I'm not in like the discourse. But when I'm constantly like going and fighting monsters and somebody just zooms past me and kills all the monsters, I'm like, dang it. I don't like it, you know?
You become keenly aware of your power level by comparison very quickly.
Yeah, that's a good way to say
and how
it.
slow you are, right?
True.
Path of Exile, you don't notice that
Yep.
because often you're not grouping with other people. Um, I feel like the open world in Diablo is very much the be careful what you wish for kind of situation.
Mm.
As people complain about running the campaign in Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2, when I first heard that Diablo was going to have a skippable campaign, and it's like, oh, that's awesome. That will be super exciting. And then you get the system that Diablo has put in, and really what it does is it pushes the grind earlier without the benchmarks that you're used to having to know that you are successful. Like even in Path of Exile 2, right now for my hardcore characters, I judge them by, getting past Viper. I get past Viper, like that fight just for some reason is the bane of all my hardcore characters. For Path of Exile 1, it was Innocence. It was just like
Okay.
you clear Innocence and then like, oh, that character is gonna live. It's gonna live to maps. I did it. Um, Diablo 4 doesn't have that. It doesn't have those benchmark moments. And then without those, it just feels like a slog where leveling is no longer something to enjoy. It's something to get through. And it's not to say that leveling always has to be exciting, but something could happen
Mm-hmm.
and make it enjoyable. So I do think the open world does hinder it a little bit, and then the lack of a campaign. I mean, you can always opt into it, but why would you at this point when there's nobody there and
Right.
it's going to be slower?
Yeah, and I don't think they designed it to be replayable, right? With Path of Exile 2, I know that Grinding Gear Games is cognizant that this is something. I think this is a hill they'll die on, right? They want people to play the campaign, so they're going to try, even if people still won't like it, to make this campaign something that will be interesting, something that will have those moments like with you and Viper Napawatsi. I don't actually remember. Dang it. But then also have
It's
that.
okay. I won't judge you.
It's okay. Dang it. I couldn't remember the NPC at the end of the campaign. The two Val that help you out alongside Doriani. I get their names confused all the time. But they are intentionally really trying to force that replayability into the campaign with all the different moments, and they're going to add different mechanics and the different spawning of the world map. All that. They're really trying. I can tell. And they're experimenting with it, and I do hope it works out. And honestly, I wish the best for Diablo as well. You touched on the roadmap earlier, and even as someone who doesn't play a lot, I got that same exact vibe. I was like, oh no, this isn't going to be good. Like I read it, and it's just the different powers every season, and I don't know if that'll grasp people. Maybe they'll look at that again, make some edits, and do well in the future. Speaking of the future, one last Diablo question, and then we can move on to PoE2 and the like. I think Rod Ferguson came out a few weeks ago and said that they have a 10-year plan for Diablo 4. Do you think that's true, or do you think maybe being Blizzard, they kind of see the writing on the wall already, and maybe they're working on a Diablo 5, right? Where they're like, okay, we tried this crazy new thing with the open world. Some people love it. A lot of people seem to not like it. Maybe we go back a little bit more to our roots. Maybe we do something totally different, because I think Diablo 4 was supposed to be more like a God of War experience originally, right? Like maybe they do something
There's
wild.
been
What do you
there's
think?
been so many iterations on it.
Yeah,
I think it's a multi that I have to answer a multi-part question in multi parts, I
100%.
suppose.
Yeah.
So let's talk 10-year plan
Okay.
first, then let's talk Diablo 5. So 10-year plan, I would say yes, in the exact same way that Diablo 3 has a 10-year plan, right? It is still being serviced. It
Okay.
still exists. But I think the model that they originally went for was multiple seasons, expansion every year. And they've already had to fall back on that because we're not getting an expansion this year. So, do I think we get another expansion? Yes. Do I think we get 5 expansions? No. I don't think that's what happens anymore. I think like you're kind of talking about at the front end, with interest starting to wane, and I'd be really curious. I don't get to see your chat right now, but there is a meme around Diablo, just a few words that continuously get
Mm.
brought up every time somebody talks about it. God, what is that?
I
Oh,
don't.
it's D4 bad.
Oh,
I
right.
would imagine at some point in this chat, somebody is putting that out there, um, and you can't get away from that,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You the narrative after 2 plus years has been spun, and it's not saying that I'm agreeing with it, but that narrative has, like, sunk its teeth into the game. So, what do you do to change the narrative? You have to make a new game, right?
D5 bad doesn't have the same ring to it, you know?
It doesn't have a track record yet.
True.
I think the big thing, and I freelance for Kinda Funny, and
Mm.
Greg Miller was on our podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we kind of had the same conversation where we were brainstorming what Diablo 5 would be like,
Oh.
because that is one of those unknowns. I would expect that it happens. The question is just the timing of it and where would it fit? What would it look like? And I think my controversial take was I would like the team that made Diablo 4 to make Diablo 5. I
Mm.
know.
Why is that?
I think I think there's something that happens with growth. If you look at
Okay.
the growth from D1 to D2, same team, taking their ideas, polishing them, they made something great. Then you wait a whole decade and a completely different team comes in and makes Diablo 3, and it is a completely different experience from what we had had before in Diablo 2. Then we wait another decade and another team comes in and makes Diablo 4, but they built a little bit more on Diablo 3's base and stole a little bit more tonally from Diablo 2. And they tried a few things. They tried this open world, they tried these bosses, they tried their skill tree, and there's rooms for growth there. But I think if you can take that feedback and start on a fresh base, you can make something great, right? Making a skill tree, making all these classes is not something that's easy. And it happens early on in the process where some of those mistakes might have been noticed, but it was too late to fix.
Right.
And you can't fix a lot of the math that's already in the game now. So if you take those changes into the next one, as opposed to bringing on a brand new team, it doesn't mean like you can't shake up leadership, but bringing in a whole new group of people to make a whole new game, I think we're going to end up having the same kind of conversation. Look at GGG with PoE1 to PoE2, right? It's the same leadership, barring a few exceptions. And we've seen some exodus as we kind of go in, but
Hmm.
they were able to take a lot of the things that they learned in PoE1 and say, like, these are what we want. This is what we want to do that we couldn't do based on all of the systems that we've already put in. And granted, that ruffles some feathers. Uh, there's a different vision there, but it allows for something new to be created. Um, I think that's what I would like to see. So again, that's a long-winded answer. Yes, there's a 10-year plan. Whether or not that is, if we're seeing in this, roadmap, I would expect a lot of it looks like that. And that is a fault of the system. Seasons and an expansion, a paid expansion,
Hmm.
to me just doesn't work anymore. I feel like Path of Exile has really nailed it on the head with like what this as a service kind of looks like. The seasonal approach with a
The
big
prettiest
expansion
piece
season
makes the whole
makes a lot of sense to
complete.
me. And
Definitely.
that's as opposed to we're going to hold everything for a paid expansion down the road.
That's a really optimistic view, and
Isn't it?
that's giga optimistic. But it's, ah, man, I'm just thinking like, okay, so are the same people who made D4 still working on D4, or has a lot of that team moved on? Because I know like the visual people. Okay, so Rod's still there. What happened to
Right.
like Joe Shelley? Wasn't he the game director? Is he gone, or is he still there? He's just kind of taken a back
We've
seat,
seen when it comes to game directors, like we've seen expansion game directors come in. The impression that I got from Joe Shelley, and I've never met the man, but I'm just
Okay,
talking in from what I've seen, is he's not somebody who wants to be in front of the camera. Um,
that's fair. It's
which is
rough.
absolutely. We had, and I've had the opportunity to talk with Jay Wilson a few times, and I know it's a much maligned name in the ARPG space,
He was the
but
D3 director, right? I'm
he was
sorry,
the
I'm like,
D3
okay,
director at launch, and
got it.
the insight that he was able to give around like carrying that position is absolutely wild. Like what it does to you both mentally and physically, like having to carry this weight of a franchise that has been waiting for an expansion, but also to be the target of vitriol, uh, like constantly. Um, while also like having to worry about like misspeaking. And he did have a famous quote in which he misspoke about somebody in what was thought to be a private conversation, but
Hmm.
misspeaking about the product itself and losing the company money. He made mention about how like he had to be super careful because saying the wrong thing about um the game causes the stock to decline, and
That's what I was
suddenly
thinking. The graph just instantly,
right,
whoo, yeah, yeah.
suddenly
Uh-huh.
Activision has lost, $20 million or 40 or whatever it is, just because you said something was going to happen and it didn't. um I don't envy the people in those positions. It takes a very special person to want to make a game and then also be the face of it. Like I don't get how you do that. And
Mm-hmm.
and props to like someone like Chris Wilson or Jonathan Rogers, who can get up there and can put themselves out there while also absorbing all of the stuff. Because even if you don't want to read all of it, you're still aware of it, and it can definitely weigh on you. But like my sense with Joe Shelley is that he doesn't want that light. I think he's content
Yeah.
being in the background. I think that's really why we haven't seen him.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe that is still possible, where that team gets a second shot. Activision Blizzard says, okay, all right, Diablo 4, bad. We want to make D5 good. Okay, let's look at all these
Right.
ARPGs in this space. Let's look at Last Epoch. Let's look at PoE2. They're Blizzard. From I never played a lot of Blizzard games growing up. I played like evolutions of Blizzard games. So I played a ton of Dota 2, for example. I
Okay.
played like Guild Wars 2. I never played WoW. I played Diablo 2. That's the only Blizzard game I played like before all this content. But I always hear that Blizzard's best quality was being able to steal what other studios were doing and do it far better. They just knew how to exactly what to tweak to turn an okay mechanic into a goated mechanic, right? And I'm wondering, like, they obviously have done somewhat of that with Diablo 4 and the armory, the Last Epoch's crafting, not the armory, just the crafting system in Diablo 4. I wonder why they just don't like do that with the other ARPGs that are seeing a lot of success with that huge budget, with that money. They can get a lot of talent. You know, hey, Chris Wilson, Rishi, Rory. I mean, maybe Blizzard was like, "Yo, Diablo 5." I'm just kidding. There's no way, but
I I I did get to interview Chris Wilson years ago,
okay.
and I asked him if because he was a gigantic Diablo fan. And I said, like, if you ever get the opportunity and Blizzard comes knocking at your door, would you helm the the next version of the franchise? And he was adamantly opposed to it, and which makes sense at the time because he
Mhm.
was, you know, knee deep in Path of Exile, and I think that was Legacy League. Is it Legacy?
Wow, dude, that's
Uh,
like 2015,
yeah,
2016.
it was a while ago. So yeah, he was adamantly opposed then, but maybe if he's got a little more free time, I sincerely doubt Chris would want to would take on
Where is
that
Blizzard?
massive
Is
undertaking.
Blizzard next to like Vegas? Where's their
It is in
headquarters?
Irvine,
Irvine,
California.
California. Is there a lot of Magic tournaments in Irvine? I mean, I know Chris is huge Magic the Gathering. You know, it would be just quick drive.
I'm
You know,
I'm sure if they could work it into his contract that he got paid in black lotuses,
there you go.
then
The super secret
maybe
collection. You know.
yeah, maybe he would want to take that on. But you are right, like in terms of beg, borrow, and steal from the competition.
Hmm.
There were a lot of points in Diablo 4 where you like as it was coming out, I was expecting them to pull from Path of Exile as it was just the, at the time and still is one of the greatest ARPGs around. I would argue PoE1 like really kind of holds on to that mantle. I thought like nightmare dungeons were going to be akin to mapping in Path
Oh
of
yeah.
Exile, and that didn't turn out. I expected, you know, um, something as simple like in which I can go and purchase cosmetics for my skills in Path of Exile. I thought that would be just you can print money, Blizzard. Like, I will pay to have
Seriously.
a different colored, werebear. I will pay to have a different colored fireball.
Actually,
Like, I
can't
don't
believe
know,
they haven't done that. Where's the panda? Come
like,
on.
right? Like, try. I mean, I don't know how you spend your Path of Exile gold, but I mean, I would have. Do you spend it on armor? Or do you spend it on skills?
I would definitely spend it on skills. The latest skill effect packs in PoE2. Oh my god, they're so cool. I'm not using any of the skills right now. I'm shocked they
Right.
haven't dropped something for Lightning Spear. GGG, what are you doing? But whew, they look sick. Totally sick. So, but you're
Yeah.
right. It's very interesting. It really is. They must see them. They must be doing this though because they're making a bank load of money, right? With the cosmetics,
Yeah.
and
I
it's
think
little work, right?
that is the other part of the Diablo conversation is like in the space that like it's weird to say that like we inhabit because I consider myself a very small time, right? But
Ditto.
in this space, like content creation and what have you, you have people who are putting in a week what your average player would put in maybe a month or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Diablo as a game like sold really well.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knows the numbers and like you can look at Steam charts and what have you, but that's
Yeah.
not nearly
No.
as valuable, right?
Totally true.
To internally, Diablo 4 must be doing pretty well at least. And I'm not talking just monetization on battle passes and cosmetics, but like people playing.
Mm-hmm.
They see a new season, they play their character, they enjoy it, they move on. And I think like that's the other part of this conversation when we talk about ARPGs is understanding that there is like this big casual market that I think Path of Exile 2 is trying to aim for a little bit more, as we kind of saw with like a big push. But I think I think what Path of Exile 2 is doing by comparison to Diablo 4 is understanding that you can appeal to a broader audience while retaining a lot more of the complexity of the game
Mm-hmm.
where you don't have to water it down as much. And I think that is a big takeaway that Diablo can learn is that you can try to do both. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to just lean in to the overly casual that like you can get them in as a casual and then hook them with all the other complexities at the end that are just not present in the game right now.
Right. I would even argue, if Blizzard leaned a little bit more into stealing away some last epoch influence, if they had like skill trees for each individual skill instead of like the two or three or the four options for each skill, I bet people would eat that up. And it's really, I bet they can tutorialize that, make that really bite sized, and add that layer of complexity, and a lot more people would get leg room in Diablo, because people love the world, they love the aesthetic, they're obviously very nostalgic for playing that sort of game. And I know a lot of people say, I'm done, no Diablo 4. I bet when that next cinematic comes out, man, and
Right.
we're finally gonna get Mephisto, and then we're gonna see a little bit of Diablo. We're gonna people are gonna be screaming. There's gonna be the Asmongold react like, oh, I'm 100% playing this game, right? It's gonna happen, right? People are gonna log back in. I bet that they could win people back with like a Diablo 5, really, and make a mark if they're able to like evolve their vision, right, and steal from some
Right.
others.
Yeah, it I think there's a lot of opportunities for growth. I think there is a good team on Diablo 4. I think, like I was saying earlier, there's just been some choices that were made along the way that make it hard to kind of untangle the mess. Like you mentioned, the open world. Like, okay, because we have the open world, now we introducing new seasons is harder. Like with Path of Exile 2, and granted, let's face it, the wisps aren't the best new seasonal mechanic, but when Path of Exile typically introduces a mechanic, it's exciting to go back to those first couple zones because you're immediately brought into a brand new experience,
Right.
right? Yes, I've, cleared Act 2 far too many times, but every time I'm making my way to the Jaguar boss, now I have to, in this case it's chase a wisp, which isn't exciting, but when it's delirium, when it's a breach, when it's any of those other
Mhm.
mechanics, I'm chasing that. That's exciting. Um, Diablo just doesn't have that because of the choice that was made years ago for that open world. You
Yeah.
can't have that happening without just reducing it down to the typical Helltide kind of thing that they've done. So there's a lot that would need to be untangled
Right.
for it to kind of get to a solid spot. But we'll see. I think like that's the best way. Like,
That's it.
yeah,
That's a good way to end the D4 conversation. Hopeful for the future. Hopefully they turn
yeah,
things a little bit around. And okay, PoE2 now.
okay,
All right, Zant, we were supposed to talk like freaking 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Then we had some
yeah,
like time mix-ups, and I thought you were like sick and passed out or something. And then I was like, oh, I can't do. And then now we finally sat down and talked. Okay, you've
yeah.
played
No,
010. Last time I talked to you, you had gone to like that press event too. You really enjoyed PoE2. Okay, you were
I
you were loving it.
love
020.
PoE2.
What are your current thoughts on the state of the game right now?
I I legitimately love this game. So you kind of said I got to go to a press event
Yep.
last
November.
November, yeah, before release, and then I got access to the review copy, so I could review it for kind of funny, and I played a boatload then, and for anybody who's ever reviewed a game before, you typically get, or I should say, if you've never reviewed a game, you get access to the game about a week before,
Mhm.
and you just try and brute force your way through it. I have a different life outside this camera. I don't just live in this space. I have to go and do adult things for my adult job, and
Ditto.
then I'm also trying to juggle. I've got 1 week to play and beat this game, and the thing with an ARPG, though, is if I make it through the story, I haven't beat the game. I can't give a true criticism of it, right? Because that's just the end of the story. I need to get to maps. I need to start to figure some stuff out. Um, so I put in, I think, like 70 hours in those 70 in those 7 days.
Wow! Holy crap!
Not sleeping, that much because I had this narrow window, and I was so high off the press event, and I felt like it was so cool to be playing this before release as well. Um, and the most impressive part is when D4, like I got to do the review for Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred, I had burned myself out where I'm just like, all right, the season starts. I've already done everything. I'll come back in. I'll kind of go, I'll be a little lazy about it. But when PoE launched, I was just as giddy because it was like I was rushing through that. I only played a chronomancer, so I want to go and play a mercenary. I want to go
Mhm.
and play, a necromancer. Like I want to do all the things, and I wasn't burnt out. And even now, I don't feel burned out. There's so many. I was chatting with a friend earlier. I still have like 5 or 6 builds right now that I want to go and play that I'm still like tinkering with. And I get like there still are criticisms and loot
Oh
and
yeah.
which maybe is better right now because that patch just dropped. And the wisps, the wisps of it all. But I'm I'm still very much enjoying myself. But part of that is I play only hardcore, and then this league was only hardcore solo self found.
Oh,
Um,
bless
I
your heart.
know,
Bless your heart.
yeah, I know, because I'm a sadist, and during review, I played softcore because I could understand how stupid that would be if with a limited time frame and dying multiple
Mhm.
times. But now I like that little bit of self imposed challenge adds like this extra layer of longevity to the game where it's like, okay, this character made it to this point. I've built up these resources. I'm going to take that. And now my new success is a measurement of just past it and then just past that and just past that. That my enjoyment is elongated. Plus, again, I'm not in this space playing this game all the time,
Eh,
which I
yeah,
think adds that extra layer.
it does. I'm so curious because I was having this conversation with chat right before we hopped on. I was saying how I have played pretty little compared to a lot of like ARPG players, which we talked about. A lot of people, like average players or casual players, will play a certain amount of time in a month or two, and a lot of the hardcore will play that in 3 to 4 days. Right? It's kind of wild. So I'm curious. I've played because you can do slash played. I'm not. I don't play Steam. I play standalone. But my characters are all still alive and they're in the league, so I slash play. I'm at 43 hours played since 020 launched, and about half that was launch weekend. So I feel like I've played relatively little, and I'm someone who I'm really enjoying it, right? But I'm not. I'm also not just playing 4 hours a night. I'm not even playing 1 hour a night most nights. Like I will play for a few hours at a time on a weekend or something, right? And at least the way PoE2 is designed right now, I giga enjoy that. With PoE1, I usually do go super hard for 2 to 3 weeks, and by super hard I mean like 60 hours when I didn't have kids in 2 to 3 weeks, and then I would be burnt out for 2 months. I'm not really playing PoE2 like that. Like I'm playing it in a very, very different manner. How are you approaching it? What is your time like if you know off the top of your head, or what do you think it is?
Okay. So this is where I get into the
Exposed.
stupid thing I do.
Oh,
So I I like to run. I'm training for I have an ultra marathon in 2 weeks and then another one in a month.
what's an ultra marathon? You got to define it.
Okay, so an ultra marathon is any race that is above 26.2, starting at
Okay.
about 50 kilometers and then going all the way up to, I mean, there's 250-mile races. My one in 2 weeks is a 50-mile trail race, and then the one in a month is a 100-mile.
Oh my god, dude, you're a Giga Chad. You're a real life Giga Chad. Oh my god, bad
Yeah,
respect.
it's hard to be this awesome, chat. Sorry, to flaunt that I'm again a sadist. So I live in Milwaukee, and it
Okay.
we have winter. So what I discovered years ago is we have a treadmill in the basement. I can link that up and play video games while I run because being a dad and having a life, I like to do my running early before everybody else has gotten up because otherwise it's one, I'm a better person after I run, and then also it's the best time for me. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
So I will get up early in the morning and like training runs might be between like a Tuesday's like between 8 to 12 miles, and then Wednesdays like 8, and then Thursdays like 10. Um, so that gives me a solid hour and a half to 2 hours depending on what I'm running that I can just dive in and play. So like I can carve out my game time there, and then later on once everybody goes to bed is when I'll dive back in for a little bit like an hour or two.
Wow. So you are playing hardcore ARPGs while running between like 6 and 12 miles on a trip. Do
Yeah,
you,
that's where the pause really comes in
oh
handy so
my
I can like
God,
drink
dude.
some water along the way.
What do you play on? Do you play controller? Do you have like a
Yep.
gamepad? What controller?
So controller.
Okay.
So for those of you guys who are looking to emulate this, I'm going to run you through the
Do
process.
it, please. I'm
Uh,
so interested. This is way
First,
cooler.
what you need is I use an iPad and I have remote play hooked up to the iPad and my PlayStation. So the PlayStation is always tethered via Ethernet, and then the iPad is on Wi-Fi. Uh, they will connect, and then I will bring up my PlayStation there. Use my Bluetooth DualSense controller to connect to the iPad, and then I'm good to go. Now the key, if you sweat like this guy does, is you're gonna want to put a shower cap on that controller, which will prevent it from getting too sweaty.
Wow,
And then you've solved all of your problems. No sweat on your controller, and you can run and play video games.
dude, that's crazy. See, I got a walking pad, man. Come on, you can't one up me like that.
Uh, now, in training, I will say, some days are better than
Oh
others,
yeah.
but the most I've done is I did have to do a full on marathon on the treadmill one
Oh
day, just
my
because
god.
normally I don't like to run on the treadmill for all my runs because you want to, obviously get on the road, but snowstorm, can't get out. I've got to run
Yeah.
26 miles. So Path of Exile for a couple of hours really makes the time go by real quick.
Hardcore solo self-bound running a marathon, by the way. That's like,
Mm.
the whole brag that you got to give.
Right. I feel like, yeah, you can write that down.
Holy crap.
Um,
Oh my gosh, that's
it's
wild.
not a
Okay.
party trick I break out that often, I guess.
No, oh my. Okay. So you're running, training for your marathons, playing PoE2 on hardcore. Where are you on your for this character now? Have you I
Uh,
assume past the Viper and maybe into endgame?
yes.
Yeah.
So my current character, I've
Okay.
killed. So this so far this league, I think I've killed 6 or 7 characters.
Oh no.
Several Smiths of Kataba, and 2 Liches, a Ritualist, and
Holy
yeah, just that's it.
graveyard.
Um, yeah, it is. There's an amazing feature in Diablo 4 where you do get like a Hall of Fallen Heroes. I would love that to make its way to Path of Exile,
Ooh.
just so you can have them, hanging out there. The
In your
memory of them.
hideout. That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Uh,
I like that.
GGG.
Yeah,
Steal that.
MTX, because that's probably what it probably would be.
Right. I'd pay for that.
I would pay for it too.
So I have made it. I think my highest character died around like what T6 maps or so.
Yeah.
Nothing major.
Mhm.
I was still feeling it out. But the current lich that I have right now is just on the precipice of maps, and then the D4 season drops, so I've had to
Right.
go in there, and that's where that struggle comes in. It's like I'm having some good success, things are
Yeah.
rolling,
Right.
and I'm just gonna put it on pause. I'm gonna come back to it, but I'm very excited to get back to her because I'm absolutely loving this particular build. It is well, not storm mages, but it's cold mages, and then there is some storm in there, more of a minion
Okay.
lich. Um, but it is super fun. I do like the customizable minion kind of approach. I ran ED Contagion for a little bit. I just kind of got burned out on that playstyle. I don't
Yeah.
dislike it, but it's like it's very samey. where I found myself gravitating back towards the minions, and we're gonna get her. We're gonna get her back up there, and she's gonna down the arbiter. I can feel it. Like
Oh
it's
yeah, you got it. You
yeah.
got it.
On in mid run, I'll take her out, but
Have you
yeah,
done
that's
Arbiter
where I'm at.
on hardcore yet? Last
On
league?
hardcore, no.
Okay.
Softcore, last league,
You
yes.
did?
Because I
Okay.
started softcore. I will. You got to hand it to GGG as well. Like mitigating from hardcore to softcore, it's staying in league as well
So much
is
better.
such a huge improvement. Where when I do lose these characters, if I'm on the precipice of that, like I can be like, okay, well, let's just go play around a little bit, test the waters, and then before I roll that next character, I can come back. So yes, in last league, no in this league currently, but I think it's one of those things where I'm having fun enjoying the journey. Where my measurement of success really is, did my character get a little bit better,
Yeah.
and am I still having fun at the moment?
Right. See, I try not to measure myself against others really when I play. I'm the same way. Like I have a goal that I have set in mind for like the league. So where you might be just okay, iteratively better each character. I'm just all right. I gotta down that arbiter at least once on a self-made build, and of course, what do I stumble into as a freaking self-made build? Oh, this lightning spear skill seems really fun. And then you go anywhere and lightning spear is 53% of all characters in PoE2 right now. I'm like, oh, of course. Well, I
I mean,
can
it's fun
say
though.
it's dude, that's what it's so fun. And it's very powerful. Obviously, it's busted. Um and it's an interesting, you talked about like Tangle Tongue and how it's cool when you get this piece of your build. It's like a big upgrade, and you might be finished basically with that upgrade. Sure, you can get a few more stat points on it, with certain corruptions and the like, but it's basically done. When I stumbled upon Tangle Tongue, like literally, because I'm not looking crap up, I saw people talking about it on Reddit, and I was like, I guess I'll look at it. And then I realized, oh my god, this is ridiculously powerful. And then I saw people in global chat talking about Kitoko's Current, which are gloves that make all your lightning damage contribute to electrocution. Oh my gosh, like I love when you can equip a unique item or a support gem, and it changes your build entirely. When I equip those Kitoko's Currents and you chuck a lightning spear and like 50% of the monsters are just electrocuted, oh my god, the feeling is, it's just, ooh, you feel powerful. I like those moments in ARPGs,
Absolutely. I mean, like it is a nice bit of incremental power, a little bit of player choice, and then you get to kind of reap the rewards. I think where Path of Exile really shines is that any boss can be one shot, right? Like, or close to one shot, but to get there, you have to do so much investing, and you have to really push your character to get to that level, barring some major bugs that kind of crop up.
Yeah.
But you can do it if you're willing to spend the time or currency, or in some cases both. That can happen, and having that kind of ceiling is exciting, because then you get to see yourself getting closer to it,
Mhm.
and that just makes the game continue to be more rewarding. Not to mention just finding good stuff along the way. I mean, have you ever found a mirror before?
No. No mirror. You?
Yes.
What?
Uh,
Come on.
it was in Delve League for PoE1.
Really? Okay, where? Where did you find the mirror?
It was in like a lower Val outpost in Delve. I had just cleared it out. I think it was with a Pathfinder at the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't super deep, but I was playing hardcore, of course, at the time, and it dropped, and I just was flabbergasted.
Yeah.
I did not know what to do. And as somebody who, you know, is used to being very poor in ARPGs, to be gifted the greatest item you can to bootstrap literally anything.
Mhm.
It was a fun league. That was like the fact that I'm feel the need to bring it up. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I did find a mirror. It's
It's
no
huge.
big deal.
Oh, there are
Yeah.
people with tens of thousands of hours who just have never found it. It's a special thing. It really is. So did you sold it then? It sounds like you didn't keep it.
I didn't keep it. There was
Oh,
contemplation to like hold it forever, but what I did do is I used it to finance my quest for the Shaper hideout. I wanted to be able to kill Shaper in hardcore, so I used it to finance the build that would let me do it, and then use that to farm Shaper until I could get that hideout. Because that to me felt like I get to carry this through. I get to take the hideout
yep,
and then have that forever.
yeah.
Eventually, I'm hoping it comes to PoE2, so I can just have that as well.
That'd be very cool. I'd love to get the Arbiter's Lair as like a hideout too, that sort of thing. That's something they stopped doing. You know, they started selling the hideouts in the store. I still think
Yeah.
having a remnant of that would be kind of cool in the game, just to have those unique opportunities to get these rewards that are nowhere else. Because outside of just stumbling upon the hideouts in PoE1, is it just Shaper? Is that the only boss fight where you can unlock a hideout? I think it is. Yeah. But
I thought Maven has one too.
in the store, man. Crucible,
Oh,
it's in the
you
store.
can't earn that? I thought you could earn that.
In the store.
Hmm.
It's in the store. It goes on sale all the time. The Crucible. It would be super
I
cool if it
thought
was in the store. Sorry, not in the store. If it was earnable from Maven,
in
I'd
the
love
game.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love that. That's really cool. I'd be grinding Maven.
Yeah.
Trying to.
But yeah, the Shaper one I
Yeah,
absolutely love. And it is it's like I probably wouldn't go back to that character just to look at a mirror, but that mirror is reflected uh, in all of my
dad
characters.
jokes.
My I know. It's in the DNA at this
Yeah,
point. But it is in all my characters currently. So it is a nice little memory to kind of have and fun to show off when I
yeah,
have it.
definitely. All right, so you said GGG's doing really well in some regards in PoE2. I'm curious from your perspective, especially you have an interesting perspective too, being a marathon runner playing hardcore while playing PoE2. What do you think they could most improve on? What do you have some critical feedback for the game in 0 to right now? I know you mentioned loot wisps. Any other things that come to mind?
I would argue, and I think I've seen the sentiment kind of come up is to treat this more like early access and less like a continual release cycle. I get I'd be curious behind the scenes, like how much of it is more of a 10-cent influence
Yeah.
than anything else. Because you obviously get more eyes on your game every time you pump out like a major, big, expansion or league or whatever, But if they're more iterative in the continual short term, it I think that will reap more trust with the player base
Hmm.
as opposed to waiting several months down the road. I would argue that I don't think it's the PoE2 of it all that is it probably going to invite the most criticism. It's the PoE1 of it all. I think that's the bigger problem is that that is a very rabid fan base that is in some ways being neglected.
Oh
And
yeah.
whether the narrative is true or not, like the thought of the sacrifice of that game for PoE2 just breeds animosity and can disintegrate the goodwill that GGG has brought up over the years. I would think that's the biggest criticism is trying like I know it's hard, but trying to figure out how to strike a balance between both these games so that you don't, cut off your nose to spite your face. That's the biggest challenge.
I'd agree with you. I think the best thing right now for Path of Exile 2 is a great league in June for PoE1. Seriously. If Grinding Gear Games can manage to dedicate a team to work on making PoE1 expansion content consistently again and do a great job in June, I think that'll be so good for PoE2. I really think there's just so many people who don't like the game, are burnt by it, and because it is being neglected, PoE1 is being neglected for PoE2. They want to see PoE2 fail, and I think a lot of people are I think a lot of animosity is going toward it. They're very spiteful about this, and the goodwill is I feel like it's eroded, right? A little bit I feel like was bought back with Freesia, but I think it's already gone. That was in February. It's April, or sorry, it's May. Wow, it's May. Wow.
It's May.
Holy crap, it's May. Oh my God. There's supposed to be a league in June. I hope it's good, and I hope they can find a good balance. And then I also agree with that second point. Treating it as early access is what they should do. I think in the long term, I'm not a game dev, right? But if they are making rapid changes, right? Wouldn't that shorten the window of early access and get it into a better state quicker? Right? And I'm not talking about adding content, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every month. It's just making those changing those numbers. A lot of PoE2 is a numbers game, right? You just got to be constantly shifting those skill values, stuff on uniques, just modify. If they're making changes every few weeks as opposed to every 3 to 4 months, you're going to get in a way better state with a lot of these skills and the balance way quicker. Is there something that we might be missing out on besides the fact that they're afraid to nerf the builds that people are playing, and then those people will just never come back to the game or bounce? Is there like a hidden factor? Because I've tried to rack my brain around it. Is there anything that you can think of, being big ARPG veteran?
It seems like they very much have like locked into the league cycle
Yeah.
for early access. And I get it. Like, hey, we gave you all these toys. You're gonna play with them. We don't want to immediately take everything away. But it's also early access. And I think like the timetable for this game is what is the most concerning because and I think it's concerning for both groups of fans. Like it is meant to be done by December. Like they said, the goal was to be done in a year.
Yeah, you're right.
It it's May.
Uh,
Um, there are still, 5 classes missing. Swords, 3 axe.
Axes,
Um, yeah.
flails.
Yes, the
Where's my bear?
there's a lot, right? As a druid main, I want that. It I will say I was very content with the Huntress. I've wanted to play an Amazon-like character since D2, so
Mhm.
that's filling a very good niche for me. But
Wait.
to uh, to have this delay and then have all these other things that need to happen, I imagine there's a lot of just hardcore PoE1 fans looking at that, going, "Our game is going to be in the weeds for even longer,"
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And there's that animosity building up yet again, and like this is a league that has lasted over a year. Like that's absolutely unheard of. Like I think back to when I first started, like I got invited to the beta for PoE1, and I played a
Wow.
little bit, and I liked it. But I like Diablo 3, and I was much like you, I had very young kids at the time where I
Hmm.
couldn't whole ass 2 ARPGs at the same time. But I came back to it. Um, it was before Labyrinth came in, and that's when it really sunk its teeth into me. But that 3 month cycle, being able to go and have these awesome leagues every single time. Uh, a story I've never shared before. I timed my vasectomy to line up with a Path of Exile league. I know there are people out there that will, do
Okay.
that for
I get it,
like
though. I
March
do.
Madness and
Yeah.
what have you. But I was like, "Oh, I can set it on the 6th of December?" I think it was the 6th. Yeah, I'm gonna do that, and
That's good.
it was Delirium, and it was one of my favorite leagues, um,
Yeah.
because I had a great league start because I could just sit and play. When you deprive your whole player base of, like, that cycle, not everybody's gonna schedule their vasectomy for it, but,
Right.
you could think about it, guys. I'm just saying, whole weekend of Path of Exile. Um But when you deprive, like, that player base of the core component of what makes an ARPG great, like, go back to Diablo 2. One of the best parts of it was a ladder reset where you got to race
Yep.
and and there
Yep.
wasn't anything new ever added. I mean, occasionally some rune words, but that was it. that just gets that tension brewing, and the longer it goes, the more those feelings are gonna start to crop up. So, ideally, yeah, you're right, June comes, and it's an amazing league, and it starts to get that balance going, and it's
Right.
not now June to June, again,
Yeah.
another year-long league, but it's June to September or June to October, whatever, it happens to be. Um, and then Path of Exile 2 is pumping out its updates. Like, just getting that treadmill going where both games are rotating will be massive, and then I think then we'll see GGG kind of get that goodwill back.
Okay. And I know that something else you wanted to chat about, and I think this is a good closing topic, is the similarities and perhaps differences between Path of Exile 1 and the Path of Exile 2 communities kind of being at each other's throats, and what happened with Diablo 2 and 3. Even though like Diablo 3 was like a decade after, and it was long after Diablo 2 stopped getting updates, there was still a little bit of, rivalry, some intense
Oh,
feelings too. What was it like?
absolutely. I think people forget because D4 is out now and D4 has like we go back to D4 bad, right?
Yeah.
It has its own narrative that you forget what the D2 to D3 narrative is. It's also um, we've had what 15 plus years of this version of Diablo that you kind of forget about Diablo 2 and what it
Right.
it it really used to be. When we go from D2 to D3, it started with controversy over color to begin with, right? The colors were a little bit brighter and people were upset about that. Okay, whatever. That's not a big deal. But the gameplay when you go back in by comparison Diablo 3 to Diablo 2 is vastly different. I mean, there's a decade in between, but they change up so many different things. Like it's more about putting sets together. It's you have a generator and a spender. You don't have skill trees anymore.
Mm,
It's a completely different vision for that particular game. And if you were expecting Diablo 3 to just be, Diablo 2.5 kind of, right? To be uh the newest version of Diablo 2,
right.
you're disappointed because this isn't the Diablo that you knew. I think that's kind of what we're seeing happen with Path of Exile. Path of Exile 1, I think a lot of people's hope for, and initially that was the plan, right? For Path of Exile 2 was it was just going to be this offshoot of Path of Exile and it would play the same, but it would have some polish. It would look a little bit better. And then it just got a little too big for its own britches and had to be its own game, which is totally understandable. But I think people were expecting like, hey, Path of Exile 1 is amazing. And if you just take what you have and then you add in the amazing new graphics and the skill animations and you just turn PoE1 into that, I'd be happy. I'll play that forever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is that keep coming back to the word animosity, but there is that tension there of like
Major tension.
this isn't the Path of Exile I wanted. I,
Right.
who've been playing this game for a decade,
Right.
wanted this game again, but better and flashier. That was it. So I think like it's hard. It's got to be hard for GGG to juggle both of those things. The Blizzard just being a bigger company, they had a decade in between both, and they weren't making Diablo 2 anymore. Diablo 2 was done, and that was created by
Yeah.
Blizzard North, which was different. They didn't have to appease Diablo 2 fans because they weren't making it anymore. It's like, "Hey, here's Diablo 3. You should just be happy you got something." Whereas Path of Exile's gotta try to toe that line, and I think there is some very big comparisons between the 2. Like, they are very similar in that regard of having these rabid fan bases that want more of the same while they want to deliver something different, and that different is going to be different. Like, they didn't want that. They want something that they're comfortable with, and yeah. I'm try did you play how much PoE1 did you play?
I have been playing since 2019. Absolute degenerate on PoE1. I would get 36 or 40 challenges every single league. So like
Nice.
I said, I'd go really hard the first 3-4 weeks, then I'd bounce out, not play for a few months, and then that new league, I'd go right hard into it. So I played Freesia 2 to level 80. In hardcore, actually, it was the first time I beat the campaign on hardcore ever, which was very fun. And Settlers, yeah,
No deaths along the way?
no, not for this run in Freesia. Nope. First character got to 80.
Impressive. Again, innocence every time. I mean, he's significantly easier when he
Tense.
started, but that
It
that
was
ball
tense.
phase, I hate it.
It was
Um,
super tense. Katava too was just tense because
oh
I
yeah,
just know if I get one hit, one slam, if I just miss moving one, I'm over. But I was good. Maps got pretty crazy too because some of the modifiers, I was being a little risky. And thank you so much. I'm going to talk to you later. Apparently the stream died while we were doing I was recording, so it'll be a separate VOD. It's totally okay. I had to back up, so
I get it. We did a podcast just the other day. My camera was cutting in and out for no apparent reason.
It's
There's
frustrating.
always something
Yep.
that crops up, right?
Yeah, 100%. All right, Xanth. I'll talk to you later, man. Thank you so much.
All right.